So during the lockdown, I pretty much turned off all news of the world and disassociated from any social life. And I put all my energy into the studio from morning through evening into night. All the work that I did in 2020, I worked against a white background there. And so all the pieces were light and they were more like aesthetic exercises rather than delving into my deeper self. But the second year, working against black, I was definitely delving into an unconscious level. And these things just hatched, I think, because I gave them my undivided, full attention. I began just by painting over old canvases, and that's why the black background had a modulated look to it, because some of the old work was showing through. And what was showing through gave me the initial impetus for starting these images. So I would look into this nuanced black and see that, oh, here's possibly a face. So I would make the two little circles for an eye, for two eyes. And that's why I named the whole show Starting with the Eyes, or It Starts with the Eyes, because that's how almost all of these began. So I put the two circles for the eyes. Then I used oil pastel, so I was craning in the face around the eyes. So in a way, we can think of them as colorings over oil paint. So I colored in the face, and then the face suggested a body, and the gesture of the body suggested what would accompany the body. So it was just one thing added onto another, but without any preconceived notion of what I was going to get. Nirvana was a real surprise to me. So like all the other ones, I started out with the two eyes, and then I made a face around the eyes, but the face kept changing. And pretty soon I realized that I was doing a figure sitting in Zazen meditation. And then the figure became more like a holy figure. And then the ears got long and the eyes closed and the halo appeared. And I was trying to give the impression of, if you're really in that state of samadhi, the fish were going through the body, and it was sort of like images of complete equanimity in the face of death, which is the shark down below, and the life, the waves going through the body. But the shark just appeared because there was that shape kind of hiding in the black. It was there all along. So when I was through, it just seemed like an amazing thing to me that I never could have thought to do, but it all just unfolded like that. So as I went along in the series, the animals got more and more realistic. And the reason that happened was that when it came to mind, like, oh, I'd like to put a rabbit in here, or I'd like to put a squirrel in here, and I think, well, how does a rabbit really look? How does a squirrel really look? So I would go online and I'd click on images of rabbits or images of squirrels on my computer. And then when I found one that seemed like it would fit where I needed it to go, I would take a picture of it, and then it would be on my phone. And then I'd take my phone out to the studio and look at the picture on my phone, and it's like, oh, wow, what a great squirrel. Who knew I could do that? But it was just like I had a model. It never occurred to me to have a model before. I thought you just knew it or you didn't. So this was revelatory that I could like look up what these things look like and then, paint them or color them. So when I was going online looking at pictures, I was looking at pictures to do some of the backgrounds, and I came upon this really gnarled tree that seemed like the two branches were doing this slow dance up to the heavens. And I took a picture of it just because I thought I'd like to use this somehow. And it ended up that I used just the core of it and named that one Slow Dance, thinking it was about the slow dance of life. But then, as it turned out, it became the slow dance of death once I added the crow and the moon. So in a way, it's slow dance of life and slow dance of death, and completely different from the image I began with, which was green and sunny and horizontal, but that became the core for slow dance. So after I finished slow dance, I had one canvas left in the studio that was blacked out, and I decided before I went to bed that night, it was rather late, but if I could find the eyes that were where they needed to be on this canvas, that would give me a starting point for when I returned to the studio in the morning. And to my surprise, I found 5 sets of eyes. So I had 5 sets of eyes on the canvas and went to bed. And then the next morning I came back and I looked at these and I thought, it was so obvious. These were not people. These were wolves. This was a pack of wolves. And so I went back to see what a wolf looks like, and with my image of many images of wolves, I colored in the first wolf, and then with the second set of eyes, I colored in the second wolf. And when I had 2, it seemed like quite enough, really. I didn't need to do all 5. And since I'm God of the universe, I could eliminate the other 3 sets of eyes. And so then I just had the 2 wolves, and in some of the pictures on the internet, I looked at their landscape, what their setting was, and there was that wonderful snow-covered tree. So I put that in, and that became the background, and that just seemed like the perfect way to end this series, with the wolf at the door. But then they seemed more not so much like a wolf that's going to be the wolf of death, more like a spirit guide. It seemed to me they seemed so wise and knowing that they felt like mystic wolves. And that's how that piece came about. And that was the end of this series. So because I was working against a black background, it was almost like dredging up my unconscious. And the images that appeared actually were quite meaningful to me, although I didn't realize that until a painting was finished. And then I looked at it, and I gave it a name, and I realized it was just so pertinent to what was going on in my life. These became more like symbols than anything else. All of the figures were more about feelings and states of mind rather than about the figure themselves. So it was really exciting as I just watched these things unfold, and I just felt like giving it my attention was almost like falling in love with it, because they were there to unfold in front of my eyes. It was pretty amazing. It was a great adventure.